Good afternoon. My name is Pádraig Marin and welcome to The Business Eye. The Business Eye is a weekly show that concentrates on business matters. In today's show, we have Cullen of Appreciating Assets. If you want to take part in today's show, you can do so by contacting us at businesseye at dublinsouthfm.ie or tweeting at #BusinessEye1 or texting 087 939 2000. We're also up and running on live stream on dublinsouthfm.ie. We have a guest. Delighted to have him back. It is Cullen. So, okay, for listeners who don't know exactly what Appreciating Assets is, can you just describe it, please?
Sure. We're an overseas property company. We're based in Ballsbridge in Dublin, and we specialise in helping Irish people who bought overseas properties resell them. Our main focus is in helping Irish people who bought Bulgarian properties to resell them into the Russian market.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, that's a huge area. Because we remember back in the day, we lived in a different world, shall we say,
indeed,
where people go to the weekend to these hotel conventions or whatever and come back with about 3 apartments in Bulgaria. Is there a lot of people that come up to you in, I won't say in a bad way, but kind of saying, can you just please get this off my hands?
We would have had a lot of that, say 2009, 2010, and to a certain extent 2011. But what we found in the last 2 years has been the majority of people have now just said, look, I have an asset over there. It's not doing anything for me. There's very little rental income. That money could be used, even at a loss, could be used to reinvest in Ireland, or could sort a bill, pay something, reduce their mortgages in Ireland. So there are a lot of opportunities for them to use the cash with, and that's what we find. The majority of our clients now, are being very honest, and they say, look, we don't need to sell it, but we think that if we take back 100,000 euros today, or 50,000, or whatever it may be, it can do more in Ireland in the next 25 years, or in the next 5 years, than it can in Bulgaria, perhaps in the next 20 years.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's interesting. As you say, that they just decide, listen, okay, this one didn't go too well, but if we can get back into Ireland here and buy a place now, it would be fantastic.
There are lots of places in. Look, I mean, I'm not going to. If you bought a place in Bulgaria and you paid 40,000 for it, and it's now worth today, say, 30,000. I'm not saying you're going to go buy an apartment in Dublin for 30,000.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, we were all willing to go so far afield to Bulgaria. There's places around Ireland now, less than an hour from Dublin, that you can go buy a 1-bedroom apartment, get €400 a month rent for it, for 30 or 35,000. And you can get in your car and drive through it. If somebody says the washing machine's broke, you can spin down.
Yeah.
It's not just automatically, will I take it off your rent? We find, whereas in Bulgaria, if you own a Black Sea property, really there's 12 weeks potential rental income. Given the amount of properties that are there, you'll probably do well to get 6 to 7 weeks rental income from that. You pay your management fees, and in general, you're not getting a lot out of it. So there are opportunities here in various things. I mean, and sometimes the opportunity is just to say, you know what, I can take 50,000 off my mortgage at home, and it makes my life that little bit easier every month from going forward.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's fine.
I mean, we know how badly hit the Irish property markets, and let's be honest about figures here. We're talking 60%, really. I think overall for Ireland, 50 to 60
in real terms, yeah.
Since the peak.
Well, since the peak, yeah. And then there are certain arguments as to when the peak actually happened. But I mean, from our point of view, when we look at the Irish market, because obviously we actually own an estate agency in Cork City as well, specialising in lettings. So obviously we keep an eye on the Irish market. I live in the Irish market myself, and I worry about my own negative equity, frankly. But look, I mean, selling your home, negative equity in your home only matters if you need to sell or upgrade or make it larger. As long as you can afford to pay for it, over time, you'd have to pay rent anyways if you live somewhere else. So the issues are, what do you do? What's the right thing to do with your money? What's the right thing to do with your investment? Do you cut and run? Now, in Ireland, most people have mortgages. About 60% of Irish people have mortgages. There's at least 40, if not 45% of all the properties owned in Ireland that don't have mortgages.
It's an amazing statistic.
It is, but that's the true numbers. So when you're looking at negative equity, the downturn, Irish property market took a hit. So it bears to stand reason that so did the Bulgarian market. Not because of the Bulgarian economy, but because Irish and British people made up so much of the Bulgarian market. I mean, there were more property exhibitions. If you think of it this way, the Russian population of Russia is about 140 million. Okay, population of the UK, I believe, is around, I think it's 60 million.
60 million about, yeah.
Yeah, the Irish population is about 5 million. It's 65 million. There were more properties sold in Ireland and the UK than were ever sold in Russia during the boom, and yet the Russian population was 2.5 times the size of Ireland and the UK put together. So that's the effect we had on the Bulgarian market. In the recent 5 years that have passed, we found more and more developments. There are more and more Russian people at the swimming pools. There are more Russian property owners down there now, and most of them are buying from Irish and British people that sold their properties originally. They now want to take some cash back. Some people are breaking even. A small number of people are making a profit. Not a lot, unfortunately, but that's the market. But a lot of people are finding opportunities with their cash. We sold a property for a lady in Raheny in February of this year. She sold her property. She had a €10,000 loss, but she was taking back €60,000 to Ireland, and she said that 60,000 actually now cleared her mortgage. She goes, she's €400-500 a month better off every single month. And there's lots of examples of that. People that are using their cash from Bulgarian properties to help as a deposit, or to help someone in their family perhaps buy something now in Ireland. And these things are always cyclical. But right now there's a huge oversupply of properties for sale in Bulgaria. There's nothing I can do about that, nothing you or anybody else can. There are a lot of people have the properties in the market. Some people are looking for too much money. Some people are being badly advised and are selling their properties too cheaply. And it's trying to find the right price. That's the biggest part of it,
So, I mean, you're talking about a huge oversupply in the market. So if an Irish person comes to you, you're going to give them a reality check, really?
Well, what we're going to give them is the truth. And say, look, one of our staff are going to visit your property. We're going to compare your property to similar properties that have sold within the last 2 to 3 months, and with similar properties that are currently for sale. And in fairness, that's the same whether you own a property in Spain, Portugal, France, any of these places. You need someone who's going to tell you, perhaps you're not always going to be told what you want to hear, but you should always be told what you need to hear. And and that's what we try to do with every one of our clients. It's just give them an honest valuation, because we run a business at the end of the day, and it doesn't serve us to give you a ridiculously high valuation just to get you on our books. That doesn't work, because we're going to pay. I'm going to pay staff. I'm going to pay fuel and cars. We're going to pay for marketing on a property that can't be sold. We're interested in saying, this is the price your property can be sold at today. Here are examples of what else you'll be competing with today, and that's where this price comes from. And on this basis, we feel we can have your property sold within 3 to 6 months. And the people who take our advice on the prices, the majority of them are sold within 3 to 6 months. If you're looking for a far off fields, well then that's okay, but you have to have a reality check, and that's why we advise any of our clients, whether they're going to Bansko, which are the ski resorts, or they're going to the Black Sea, if they're down there on a ski holiday or a sunshine holiday, meet some of our staff in Bulgaria. Let our guys put you in the back of the Jeep. We'll drive you around. We'll show you what you're competing with. We'll bring you into other estate agents so you can see what your properties are for sale at. And that should be the same whether you own a property in Spain, France or Portugal. I use these as examples because those would have been the 3 other places that a lot of properties are being sold in at the same time. And it's market reality. Every property, South County Dublin, in Dublin here, is experiencing its own kind of property bubble, if you will, where a good 3 or 4 bedroom family home is getting sold within, they're saying within 6 weeks. But it's within 6 weeks if they're at the right price. And that's, every market is the same.
No, as you say, Ireland's becoming a two-tier market, I suppose. You pinpointed as a 3 or 4 bedroom. Now, let's look at Bulgaria. I mean, the Irish and English went in and bought left, right and centre, to be brutally honest. Now, obviously, there's popular area. You mentioned Bansko, the ski resorts, you mentioned the coastline as well. Where are the popular areas that the Russians are looking at? Because I take it they're not going in buying left, right and centre. No,
the Black Sea in general. So from the south, Cinemarits, all the way up to the north, practically on the Romanian border, is Varna. So it goes up like that. Sunny Beach is a very popular area. St. Vlas is a very popular area. Nesibar. These are all places where There's a good infrastructure in the area. There's lots of facilities for people. The developments are of a high standard. So Russians are coming in and they're buying properties there because Burgas Airport is 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
So there's accessibility is there, and they're buying. In 5 years' time, the property market in Bulgaria has recovered and it's up by 20%. Russians will pay 20% more. Because most Russians Russians have been travelling to Bulgaria longer than most Irish people knew where Bulgaria was. Really, ask yourself, how many Irish people really the word Bulgaria entered their vocabulary prior to 2000? It just wasn't somewhere that entered our head. Then, due to a number of companies, Bulgaria became very popular. And let's face it, at the time, what you could buy down there, based on the information that was available to people, it was a shrewd investment. Buying in Bulgaria, you didn't make a mistake buying in Bulgaria. You bought something and you said, okay, well, that's a good price. And it seemed okay. And when you bought in 2004, you really seemed like a good idea because by 2006, the development next door was selling for twice the amount. So, every investment is made upon the information available to you at the time of making the investment. And the information was solid. Prices were rising. There was a continued demand. Where the information that people were given got a little bit skewed was that a lot of the people that were coming behind that they were going to sell to were also Irish and English.
Yeah.
Because that's where the biggest demand. Because the Russians weren't buying off plan. If for every 9 properties, or for every 10 properties that were sold off plan, the Irish and English bought 9, the Russians bought 1. That's why the Russians are the biggest part of the market today, because they come in now and they want to see the finished product. They can see something that's built, the problems have been kinked out, and they go, okay, yeah, now I'm happy to buy it.
So, and as well, you mentioned Spain there. As regards selling property there. Again, is it Russian buyers?
Spain's a little bit different. If you're going to the high-end properties in Spain, yes, you are getting Russian. But in Spain, you're also getting a lot of middle-class British are still buying in Spain. There's some very good values there. Also, some Irish people are still buying in Spain. There's some of the values in Spain right now because of bank repossessions and people just handing the keys back in Spain. There's some really good values to be found for people.
Yeah, I think you said in Malaga here, certain prices.
Well, there are certain prices throughout Spain. I mean, when you're dealing with the Spanish market, if we talk about we've got a 2-tiered system in Ireland, I mean, the Spanish market has about a 5-tiered system. Yeah. Really and truly, there are certain pockets. So if you go down to Marbella, places like that, prices are still very high for what we consider to be a holiday home. But in these areas, property prices are relatively low compared to where they were 5 years ago. So if you take an example, if you do the comparison, say Bulgaria versus Spain, to go over and buy a cheap property in Sunny Beach in the centre near the beach, you can buy a cheap one from 25 to 50,000. Your cheap property in a similar area of Spain, with the proximity to the beach and the same facilities around it, that cheap property is still 100 to 150,000. And that's the big difference.
Now, okay, what I find very interesting here is the profile of the Russian buyer. I mean, we're not talking the oligarchs here. We're talking about the Russian middle class. Now, how would you, if you were going to describe a profile for a Russian middle class buyer, what would they be in comparison to the Irish one?
I mean, they're very similar. I mean, it's just, you got to bear in mind that in any market there will be more people with 50,000 than there are people with 100,000. That's just in any market across the world. Okay, any population, take any demographic you wish. So what you've got is I always try and compare the Russian middle class to Ireland in 2004. Yeah, it's a rising middle class. People are having more cash available to them. More and more people. I mean, at a recent tourism conference, the Russian Minister for Tourism actually clearly stated that was it 1 in 5 of every Russian interviewed in a recent survey wanted to own a holiday home in the Black Sea. Yeah, and that's and those figures bear fruit. If you go to property exhibitions, the exhibition season in Russia starts October, November. You've got 2 big exhibitions in Moscow, and then they start again March and April. And those exhibitions are wall to wall with people. If you take Spain is very popular to Irish and British people still. Perhaps the affordability is not what it was, but it's still very popular. When you go into the equivalent of what was the City West Exhibition Centre, where you had the Sunday Business Post ran there, the overseas property exhibitions, that huge building the size of a football pitch was devoted to overseas properties. When you go into the exhibition centres in Moscow, you've got a building that size devoted to overseas properties, and how popular Bulgaria is shown by the fact there's exact same size building next door that's only devoted to Bulgaria.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you're dealing with out there. It is very popular because the Black Sea coast of Bulgaria is as familiar to Russians as Spain was to us, 10, 15 years ago. It's just there. It's a fact. The incomes are rising in Russia. More and more people. Unemployment is quite low. There are a lot of people making a lot of money, and their economy seems quite stable because they are, the economy has been driven by things that the world still wants: oil, gas, things like that, and they have it. Mm-hmm. They have it in shed load. So it's unlikely, unless there's a regime change or something in Russia, that you're going to find a slowdown in purchasing.
I don't think that'll happen for a while anyway with the present
it
incumbent.
It seems to be the constitution seems to change to make it fit. But that's their business and how they deal with it.
And like with these, would these be cash buyers, or do they have a banking system here that there's not a credit boom going on there? In other words, is there?
Well, credit is easily available to Russian people within Russia. You're dealing with a lot of people at the higher end. First off, there are no mortgages issued on the Black Sea properties that they buy, or the ski properties in Bansko. So I would equate it to, again, very similar to Ireland in that a lot of people had savings and then a lot of people had equity release.
Yeah.
But they're not putting mortgages on the properties they're buying in Bulgaria. I mean, if you put your property in the market today, you put it at a correct price, and you find a buyer. From the minute that buyer puts down the deposit and you've accepted the offer, you can expect to be paid within 4 to 6 weeks. It doesn't take long once that happens.
Yeah.
It is because they're not looking for mortgage approval. They're not seeking those things. These people have the money to buy. When they make the decision that this is the property they want and you accept their offer, a deposit is collected and your sale is complete within 4 to 6 weeks, and the funds are transferred back to your Irish bank account or whichever bank account you nominate.
Now, Dylan, I suppose I would class you as a serial entrepreneur.
I don't know about that, but yeah.
But you're a man who's you're pretty innovative as regards getting businesses together.
We have a couple of businesses which are going well, thankfully. Yeah.
So I mean, when we have somebody like yourself on the show, we always say like, well, what advice would you give to someone starting their own business?
Well, the key word at the moment going around the place seems to be to tell everybody about social media and all these things. And I firmly believe in it. And we attract a lot of our own business through the internet. But identify your market. 3 friends in a pub on a Friday night telling you that's a great idea. Or
Barstool Economics.
Yeah, I call them Barstool Millionaires. But, or your friends or family telling you that's a fantastic idea. Go out and do some market research. Myself and a friend of mine wanted to open up a business about 3 years ago. We thought there was a niche in the Irish market, in the Dublin market, and my friend was from a strong restaurant background, and we thought there was a niche in the market for we wanted to set up a business called Le Spud. We wanted to sell baked potatoes. We identified a good location. We thought it was great, and we did our research. And it was fantastic, and some of our friends said, that's a great idea, it's brilliant, it's great. Now, it was January when we came up with this idea, so it was cold, and the idea of a baked potato with beans at lunchtime sounded pretty tasty. And so we did our research, and we went down, we looked at a couple of different areas. One of the areas we looked at was the IFSC, and we went down at 6 o'clock in the morning. We sat there with scarves and coats on us, 2 cups of coffee, and we counted the people going in and out of various shops. We did that for 3 days in a row.
Yeah.
And we walked away from it, we just said, that's not a runner. There isn't, because
Why?
because the difference between a great idea and a great business, they're not always the same. They're wonderful ideas, but they don't economically make sense.
Yeah. And you reckon the footfall wasn't enough?
Well, the footfall was fine, but that, say, the IFSC where we were looking at, it was oversaturated at the time.
Yeah.
With it, so when you take into compare the rent that we would have had to pay, the staff you had to pay, you work it out through and you go, okay, there's a lot of bloody spuds need to be cooked and served every day just to cover this, and then you find, and then you work your hours back, and you say, well, to do 50 hours a week in this bloody business, I'll do well to make 600 quid a week.
When were you going to apply this idea?
That was about 3 years ago now.
All right.
And
what about now with lower rents and maybe a different location?
No, I mean, because
It's
everything comes down to, if you've got a number of my friends are actually self-employed. Maybe that's why we're all friends. I'm not sure. But we have our own support network, as it were. But you got to look at whatever your experience is and whatever your qualifications are, whatever they may be, and you look at the idea of my experience, my qualification. I should be able to earn 50,000 a year, and you say, okay, that's what I can do, and you go, okay, so I'm going to set up this business, and on its best day, will that business give me 50,000 a year? And can I deal with the peaks and troughs of income? Can you? Because some people can't. I mean, a very good friend of mine, he actually has a pretty good business, but he has said to me personally, he said, it's the peaks and troughs that kill me, Dill.
Yeah.
Because he said, you're just trying to get the business going, and you think you're doing okay, but you just can't get a good enough run to put that bit of money aside to give you the comfort of a bad month is not the end of the world. Mm-hmm. And you have to pay your mortgage at home, to pay your bills. Mm-hmm. Working for yourself is one of the best things I've ever done in my life, and I've been self-employed I'm 36, I've been self-employed for 12 years. And I love it, and I'm probably unemployable, frankly. And that's my business. But you've got to look at, it's not just about a good idea. It's about, can you make money from it? Can you make a living? There is an old expression that says, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with earning 30,000 a year if you love what you do. Nothing wrong with that at all. Because if you've got enough enjoyment from what you work at, then that in itself is enough. Where a lot of people strive after the money, and the money is because they want to buy the toys, or they want to have to be able to buy things to compensate for the fact that they're miserable 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
So you need to have that. I mean, so if I was to give a kernel of advice to anybody, it would be separate, the idea from the business, because there are wonderful ideas out there, but they're just not a good business.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to. One of the things I would have discussed with some people in recent times is about partnerships. Partnerships need to be a partnership.
Yeah.
If you can't see the value in somebody going into partnership with them, ask yourself, is that somebody, would 15,000 euros replace that person? Am I better off to be able to do it myself and just pay for the expertise for a little while? Yeah. Than actually just going into business with somebody because it's a marriage of convenience, and that tends to fall apart.
Yes. More often than not.
Yeah, you need to see, what are both people bringing to it. Make sure that both of you have the same goals.
Yeah, on the same drive,
does one guy want
one guy can take a back seat and it can fall into that role.
The amount of businesses you've seen over the years where, one guy wants to be living Champagne Charlie lifestyle out of the business and the other guy just wants to build it.
Yeah.
It's things like, these are the fundamentals of it, and people need to, you need to be aware, emotionally and financially about the toll a business can take on you, because it's not always great. There are days you feel that everything's going fine, and then out of nowhere you get a sledgehammer. Mm-hmm. And that's what it's about.
Well, that's a great message, Dylan, for people. We've got about to go, so just for our listeners, for that minute, if you could describe and encapsulate your business and give the contact details, please.
Sure. Appreciating Assets specialise in helping Irish and British people sell the Bulgarian properties they bought. We sell them into the Russian market for them. If you visit our website, which is appreciatingassets.ie, or if you just Google sell property in Bulgaria, you'll find us. Our office number is 01 614 1300.
That's it for this week's show. I'd like to thank our guests. We had Dylan Cullen of appreciatingassets.ie. My name is Pádraig Marin, and you've been listening to The Business Eye. We'll be back at the same time of 1 p.m. on Tuesday, but stay tuned and have a good week.